I've got a fun one for you today. My dad is an avid fan of Shark Week and wanted to go on a shark dive. So early, very early, on this fine morning, we went to North Shore Shark Adventures. They have a small booth near the harbor, but their real business is on the boat. Almost everything you'll see in the video is filmed on my GoPro because it's waterproof and easy to use underwater. They told us the cage floats about 3 miles offshore. I didn't time it, but it felt like a 20-minute ride. They didn't chum the water or do anything to attract the sharks, but the sharks were there before we ever got in the cage. I was grateful I had started the day with a dose of anti-anxiety medicine, the kind that doesn't make you drowsy or loopy. Here's my one-sentence review of this experience. It was really awesome, but very uncomfortable. Let's start with the second part of that. It was what I imagined my socks feel in the washing machine. Those smooth videos of shark dives where the cage stays stationary are only available deep underwater if you can scuba dive and bring your own air. If you are like me and are not scuba certified, then you also need to get a breath of air every few seconds. That means that the best you can do is snorkel gear, and that means you stay at the surface. The cage had floats everywhere to keep it up where we could breathe, but that meant the cage was rocking with the waves, and even though the waves were gentle, it was a lot of motion. Watch the boat rocking in the waves. So you had a couple of choices. Lock yourself in place on the cage and move with it, or free yourself from the cage and float with the water. So all that to say that there was a lot of motion, and please excuse the shaky video. It really was the best I could do. So, what made it awesome? They promised sharks, and they delivered. There was never a moment where I thought, gee, I wish there were some sharks to see, because there were always sharks to see. The sharks were always circling the boat and around and under the cage. I only had to turn my head and follow them. Besides my obvious expertise in catching sharks, as this video clip shows, I don't know that much about sharks. The first mate told us that these sharks were Galapagos sharks. I'll have to take his word for it. But I did do some reading online afterwards about Galapagos sharks. Galapagos sharks are usually around 10 feet long and are often mistaken for the dusky shark or the gray reef shark. They live in large groups near tropical islands and like to stay near rocky reefs. They are the most common shark in shallow water near tropical islands. So if you see a shark, it might be a Galapagos shark. They mainly feed on bottom-dwelling fishes like sea bass, eel, flatfish, and triggerfish. They also like to eat cephalopods like squid, octopus, and cuttlefish. But when they grow larger, they are known to eat other sharks, crustaceans, sea lions, and in Galapagos at least, marine iguanas. I didn't even know that was a thing. The mother sharks don't lay eggs. Instead, they give birth to 4 to 16 live Galapagos shark pups at a time, but only every few years. The pups stay in the reef where they can hide among the coral. That's because their main predators are other sharks, including older Galapagos sharks. Galapagos shark pups being confined to reefs was a good fact for us in the cage in open water, because young Galapagos sharks have a reputation for attacking anything that moves, including the bottom of boats, oars, and buoys. They mature over 6 to 9 years depending on sex, but don't reproduce until they're about 10 years or older. They live until they're at least 24 years. These sharks sport an impressive 14 rows of teeth, and they don't have to brush or floss or take care of their teeth at all. They lose about a tooth a week, and the ones behind move up like a conveyor belt to replace the lost one. Weird. Also weird that sharks evolved before trees did. Crazy how old this line of the animal family tree is. I never once felt unsafe during this dive. My foot and hand sometimes strayed outside the cage, and I was quick to pull it back in. The cage seemed sturdy, but it wasn't tested during our dive. The sharks seemed just curious instead of enraged like you see on Shark Week. None of them ever charged the cage or tried to gnaw through the bars. Look how they lazily flick their tails, moving along like they have nowhere to go. None of this is slow motion. That was their chosen swimming speed at the time. Galapagos sharks are known to be inquisitive, but not terribly aggressive, unless they are feeding, or if you get them riled up. So don't ever try to chase one away with a weapon, because that is a good way to get them riled up. and once the feeding frenzy begins, it won't stop easily. Wikipedia has a very fun account of fishermen trying to defend their haul from Galapagos sharks by beating them with oars, which only enraged the sharks and made the feeding even more frenzied. They lost half of their catch that day. There have only been 3 fatal Galapagos shark attacks recorded by 2008, and another non-fatal attack attributed to a Galapagos shark in 2018, but I was still grateful for the bars between me and them. It was a good long while that we were down there watching the sharks, but it felt like too soon before we had to come up so the other half of the boat could have their turn. We watched the sharks from above and chatted with a crew of 2 while the cage dwellers had their turn. Then back to the island to meet with our family who had been watching sea turtles at a beach. Another nice way to spend a morning on Oahu. We took the kids to Matsumoto's Shave Ice in Hale'iwa. The line is always crazy and there's no available parking for a block or more. The shave ice is delicious and the workers have to be super efficient to keep the line moving. It's really fun to watch. I got the Ichiban special. Ichiban is Japanese for best or number 1. It had sweet adzuki beans, mochi, condensed milk, and it was served in an edible waffle bowl. It would be more accurate to say digestible waffle bowl because it tasted like cardboard and was hard to chew. But like I said, Matsumoto's Shave Ice is famous for a reason. It really is excellent, and we will be sure to go back again if we have the chance. We went only a little ways away to Hale'iwa Beach, but we picked a poor spot. It was a beautiful place to watch the water and sunset, and if you only want to wet your feet, this spot was wonderful. But the coral started close to shore and the water was less than 2 feet deep for 40 yards out, so no good swimming or surfing here, and the snorkeling was nothing, as you can see. We went back to our Airbnb to rest for the next day. And I'm breaking with tradition and moving a bit into the next day. Call this day 6A, if you will. For breakfast, we went to Ted's Bakery, and you know it's good because of all the award stickers on the door. They're famous for their pies and pastries. Most of my family went for pie, but at the recommendation of the girl at the register, I went for this 4-inch square of bread pudding. Really, you can't go wrong with anything here. Like hobbits, we stopped for second breakfast at Leonard's Bakery Malasada Mobile. Malasadas are Portuguese donuts, and while I've never had them before, I believe Leonard's has perfected these tender treats. We tried them all. My favorite was the sweet but sour Li Hing Mui powdered malasadas. Having just filled our bellies with sweets, it was time for lunch. And luckily for us, there was a food truck close by called Tong's Thai, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this was the best curry I have ever eaten. So if you're in the area, give these 2 businesses some love. Thanks for watching. Come back next week when I give you my review of Disney's Aulani Resort.